how to run a game you created for the web in Fullscreen. In this quick tutorial, we check how to display a game or any other HTML element in Fullscreen, how to exit Fullscreen, and how to make a nice Fullscreen toggle button in SVG. Recently, I released a long 2-hour JavaScript game tutorial, and while it was a very packed guide, there are still a few things we could not cover in it, like how to make the game full screen. When you watch this video on YouTube, you might also watch it on full screen. But did you know that not only video elements can run in full screen? In JavaScript, there's a Fullscreen API, and it's surprisingly simple to use. Let's say we have a simple website with some text. Then let's add the button that will display this in full screen. We are going to refine the look of this button, but first let's get through the main logic. We attach an event handler to this button in HTML. Then we implement the toggle fullscreen function in JavaScript. In this function, all we have to do is to call the request fullscreen method of the document's document element property. And that's it. If you click the button, your website will pop into full screen. Before we get to exiting full screen and creating a nice looking toggle button, let's see a few other things. What you might notice right away is that with more space now, your content might get a bit lost in a full screen. Make sure you have a responsive styling that looks good on every screen size. You can even style the layout specifically for full screen. In CSS, you can set a media query that only applies the styling in case the display mode is full screen. For instance, you can change the font size or change the background color to have a distinct look on full screen. In case of games that use a canvas element, like in the case of Gorillas, Stick Hero, or any other 3JS game we saw on this channel, we need to resize the canvas element to fit the whole screen. In these cases, we need to handle the document's resize event. This event is triggered both when we simply resize the browser window and when we enter or exit full screen mode. In case of the resize event, we resize the canvas element to fit the whole screen, update the scaling, and adjust any other properties we need to change on resize. Now that we know how to enter full screen, how do we exit from it? By default, if you press the Escape key, the browser switches back to normal view. In Google Chrome, you even get a notification at the top of the screen about this when you enter full screen mode. What if you want to exit full screen mode also when you click the button? Let's change our button's behavior to toggle full screen on and off. First, we start with checking if we are in full screen mode already. We can do this by checking the document's full screen element property. If this is undefined, then we enter full screen mode the same way we did before. And if we are already in full screen mode, then we can exit by calling the document's exit full screen method. It's really that simple. With a few lines of code, we can implement the logic for a full screen toggle button. If you follow my channel, you know I love creative coding and drawing from code. So let's update the look of our button to make it look similar to what we have on YouTube. So let's create an SVG image within our button. If you check the source code of YouTube, you will see that they also use an SVG here. Let's define an SVG element within HTML. We set its size to 30 × 30 and define a path element. To style this path, we set its color with the stroke property, set its stroke width, and make sure that we don't end up with a filled shape. SVG paths by default are filled, so we need to set explicitly that we don't want to fill this shape. Then we define this path with a few move to and line to commands. We start with a move to command. We move to the start of one of these lines. Then we continue this path with a line to command that moves to the corner, and then with another line to command, we finish this line. Then we do the same with the other corners. We move to the next line segment with another move to command and draw a line with 2 more line to commands. And so on. We finish the path this way. If you watch my previous tutorial on how to make the Gorillas game, then you might have noticed we have something similar here. We also draw paths with move to and line to, except that there we were drawing on a canvas element with JavaScript. And now we have the commands as a string within the HTML file. Now that's great, but what if we want to have a different look when we are in full screen mode? On YouTube, when we enter full screen mode, the button switches from this icon to this one. You can do this in different ways. The easiest way is probably to define another path within the same SVG element with a different look. Then make this path transparent by default. We are going to toggle the visibility of these two paths in JavaScript. I'm not going to go through line by line the code of these paths because it's very similar to the previous one, except we use different coordinates for the move to and line to commands. Then we set unique ID for both of these paths, and we update our toggle function in JavaScript. In JavaScript, we get a reference to these paths by ID. Then in the toggle button's event handler, we can switch the visibility of these elements back and forth. Now, if you click this button, it not only toggles the full screen mode, but also changes its own appearance. If you want to learn more about SVGs, check out svgtutorial.com, where you can find a lot of examples from basic to more advanced levels. It's a free site and you can find even this example that we discussed. To use this button to run a JavaScript game in full screen, check out my whole 2-hour JavaScript game tutorial on how to remake the classic Gorillaz game here on YouTube. It's a massive tutorial that covers things from drawing an HTML canvas element to the entire game logic, from event handling through animation loop, hit detection, and even AI logic for the enemy gorilla. If you found this useful, hit the like button and stay tuned for more quick tips and longer JavaScript game tutorials. See you at the next one.